Hello there and welcome back to The Closet Historian and back to my sewing room for another project from the vault. That's right, I have another archive Patreon video to share with you all from the summer of 2022 when I made this strappy wrap top and wrap skirt both out of a lovely green batik. And luckily these are both rather simple projects to construct, but let's go ahead and jump back in time and get started. Alright, here we are with my basic bodice block pattern and some paper, of course. And we're going to start with this top. I'm going to be switching kind of back and forth today during the sewing portion at least, so sorry about that. But I don't really need to worry about the top shoulder of this. It didn't really fit on my paper, but it'll be cut away anyway. I'm going to go ahead and eliminate these darts into a princess seam, so I've drawn a line up into the shoulder as well, and then I will go ahead and decide on this neckline. I have added a 1/2 inch to the center front as well, so I can add a center front seam because it seemed the inspiration dress I was looking at had that. And here I am kind of lowering that neckline. I should have kept it a little bit higher, but we'll get to that later. You know, I'm always trying to guess these things from just looking at where the apex is and imagine that's the center of the bust and how far I want to come up from there or down around there to see where I want my neckline, but sometimes I get it right on and sometimes I do not. The fix I came up with for this top later I actually ended up really liking, so there's that. So let me separate this into the princess seam line here. Just go ahead and cut away that waist dart, and then I will go ahead and layer this side dart shut, and now we have a princess seam version of this. That is basically a little strapless bodice. I'm going to go ahead and lower this bust point on the side front here. You've seen me do this before with princess seams, lowering the apex for a princess seam. I'm going to go ahead and layer that down a 1/2 inch here. I probably could have gone with 5/8 honestly, because maybe things are just less perky than they used to be. You know, I'm going to be 31 and I have to make these, accept these things. Anyhow, I've lowered that a 1/2 inch and then just going to cut off the pointy tip of that so that this is a little bit rounder, and you can see that makes my center front piece too long to fit into this anymore. So I need to layer this shut about 1/4 inch along that similar bust line. I'm not being very specific about that, as you can see, but just making that a little bit shorter so that it will line up along the seam line now that I've messed with the side front a little bit and curved it off. And I, of course, will add seam allowance here because princess seam, add a style line, needs seam allowance. I'm going to walk that seam and see if it fits now. We're pretty good. It should be good to go here. No problemo. Front and side front, like so. So princess seam, little strapless front at this point. I will be adding straps to this, but I'm not going to make a strap pattern because I'm just going to cut strips of fabric along the straight grain that are 4 inches wide and about 15 inches long to make my straps. For the back of this, I've just traced the back, including the back dart as well. I'll use the side front, line that up at the side seam, just to make sure I come down the same amount underneath the arm here. And then I will go ahead and draw this up to the center back. I'm just, you know, kind of guessing how far that needs to come up. It's about 2 inches above the dart is where this ends. And then I'm adding 15 inches along the waistline here from the center back, and that 15 inches is half of my waist measurement, and I want to come out half my waist measurement so I can wrap around to the front again, and then another 5 inches to have a little tie there in the front at least. So this probably comes out, I don't know, 7 inches actually total. I'm drawing that down from the center back. You can see I keep it pretty consistent, and then it curves down, and then I have the last 5 inches or so tip up a little to meet that. You can kind of just see the shape I'm drawing here. Once again, I'm kind of winging it, you know. I'm going to make the back into a princess seam line as well, so let me go ahead and cut away the waist dart and add seam allowance along that back princess seam. Now if you wanted to bone the back princess seam and maybe like half the front princess seam and then the side seams on this and treat it like a strapless bodice, you probably could with a little bit of finagling if that's something you're really interested in. Of course, I don't make very many strappy things or strapless things personally, but I'm going to set that pattern aside for now and start working on the skirt. But for the skirt here, I'm going to use that same wrap skirt as a starting point that I made last time. So I have this front that I made in this other video that I will link to here. And I'm going to trace another copy of that to do another front top layer that has the pleating just a little bit different than last time. I'm still going to draw curved lines, but this time from the points of the darts into the side to create my kind of sarong style skirt here. Like so, and I'll separate this out into, I don't know, maybe I'm going to cut the dart off. I'm going to add probably like a 4-inch pleat in here, and I'll just tape in spare paper to do that. Again, I'm not measuring this. I just wanted to have enough fabric in here to pleat it at the waist, really. I'm not, again, you can add more, you can have less. It's up to you. It won't make a difference really in the fit because as long as you cut the dart away and still have a pleat at least the width of the dart, I guess, then it should be fine. But the idea of this isn't to be super fitted anyhow, of course. So I've got that first one in, and I drew this little pleat instead of folding, because you know how I normally fold these things closed and cut off the extra? You can't really do that with this because it's really stepped. So I was looking at page, I don't know, what did I say, 253 or whatever I just said with my fingers to try and remind myself, to see how Helen Joseph Armstrong recommends we do this. We connect the 2 points, cross them down the center of the pleat, and then use the waistline as a guide, move that down, boop, like so, connect to that point, connect to the other point, and this is how we're supposed to do this. Again, it's not actually how, I'll show you in a minute what I needed to do instead, so don't worry if you don't have this book to reference like I do. I'm going to change from her instructions to the opposite, kind of, so I'll show you in a minute. Let me do this other pleat here, and I will go ahead and, again, following the Helen Joseph Armstrong, connect the 2 points, find the center of those 2 points, like so. So if it's like 4 inches, 2 inches, then I'm supposed to be squaring this down, but I'm actually kind of just drawing it down into the meat of the pleat here. And then use the waist as a guide to draw in that first section, like so. So I'm lining the ruler up with the waist, then moving it down until it hits this point, and then connecting the last point, like that. Now, again, great idea in theory, but I'll show you what happens in practice, because I'm confused as to where I read it wrong and or something went haywire. But I'll show you what this looks like in a minute. Anyway, I'm going to tape on some extra paper to the end of this, because I just want this to have a bit more pleated over here. So where the waist ends originally, you can see it's like under my left hand up there, right here. And I'm going to add an additional 6 inches perhaps, and I'm just going to either pleat or gather that down. You could do either. The lighter weight your fabric is, you can get away with gathering. If your fabric is a little on the thicker side, you're going to want to pleat this. But I'm just angling down from that 6 inches mark and then connecting that down into the hem of the skirt, the original hem of the skirt here, like so. Again, this is like the top layer of my wrap, so you can make it the right or the left, but in the front you have 2 fronts. You have the underlayer, which is what I traced to start to get this, and this is going to be the top layer that hangs above that. So a wrap skirt has, I mean, you can make it in with 1 piece, but it has 3 pieces. It has the full back cut on the fold, and then a left and a right front. So this is the top front, and I just cut that out of muslin. I didn't cut the full skirt, as you can see, just to see how those pleats would work out. And here's the problem. It works, but instead of the indentations going into the body of the skirt, they need to stick out from the top of the skirt. So instead of going in, these need to go out. So I need the reverse here, basically. So it's, or at least for it to sit nicely and be encased in the waistband I do. The other way works, but it's not as finished and nice on the inside. So I'm going to connect the 2 points here. Do it correctly. There you go. And I'm going to find the middle, like so. And then I'm going to square up from that line, 90 degrees. And I'm going to use the waist as a guide to connect into points that point upwards and out from the body of the skirt as opposed to in. So that's how you do these pleats here where it's hard to actually fold the paper the way that you can fold fabric later on. Fabric is a little more valuable than paper is, luckily enough. But I will tape my floops down, and I will try this again to make sure that that was the solution I needed. So I'm going to use that same piece of muslin just to test out this pleat pattern again. And mark where my pleats need to go, where my darts need to go, pin everything in place, like so. And now we can see, oh, the excess I'm just pleating down randomly, by the way. And I held it up to my body, and this is the way to go. Nice. So now I have my new wrap skirt top front. I have that original underlayer that I had traced to make this front. So this is going to be my under of this. You can see one swings to the left, one swings to the right. So they kind of overlap like a tulip in the front. And then I'll use my back pencil skirt pattern and cut that on the fold for the back of the skirt on this, just like I did for the other version of the wrap skirt that I just recently made on the channel. And then I have my little strapless bodice pattern here, wrap bodice pattern. And then here's my batik fabric that I found on sale on fabric.com. I went on fabric.com because they have a brushed cotton twill I like for making trousers, and I wanted to make a pair of high-waist black trousers for summer. And they had this randomly on sale for so cheap, and I had to have it because I love a Monstera leaf pattern, and in green batik, it was just, I mean, and on sale. Thank you for buying me this fabric, everybody, because I adore it. It's so pretty. And 100% cotton like this, you can, of course, throw it in the wash, which is perfect for summertime. So here's my skirt back that I, again, cut on the fold, and I'm just tracing my darts and pinning those using colored pencil as always. And I will do the same, marking my darts on the front as well, the under layer of the front, I suppose. And then I will have to mark 2 darts on the outer layer of the front, as well as the pleats, eventually. But I have lots of darts to sew on this skirt but otherwise it's very easy to construct, so no big deal. I'll just set everything aside as I finish. But batik, for those of you who don't know, usually started in Indonesia, believe, the block print batiks. If you've never seen a jop, it's what is dipped in sort of like the wax resist and then pressed onto the fabric. It's a form of resist dyeing, so basically a waxy substance of some kind is used to block out areas on the fabric, and then it is dyed. And its original like Javanese batiks are really, really stunning. But this is much more like modern quilting style batik, but it's still extremely pretty. It's again sort of like tie-dye. It has the randomness and the pretty like modeled texture of tie-dye, but usually with the addition of the pattern, it seems a little bit less, I don't know, hippie t-shirt and a little more hopefully, I don't know, Hawaiian inspired kind of dress. But I will just go ahead and figure out how these pleats go here. Where do these go? Just marking from my pattern what needs to pleat to where. It's just 2 pleats up here, but they're kind of funny shapes. And I have my darts pinned on the other side, of course, but I will just pleat those like so. And because of that angled section we added onto the pattern, it's really actually easy to do this because you just fold those little triangles shut up to the waist and then you have a smooth waistline again. And then everything that sticks out past the waist, I'm just going to randomly pleat down. Again, you could gather this instead if you wanted to. I'm just going to pleat it. Let me grab my pattern here so I can see how far. I added about 6 inches and it needs to pleat down to about 3 inches here. Again, this does not have to be absolutely perfect because the skirt just wraps closed. So if you're an inch off, it won't matter because it's just a wrap. But you can see I'm just pleating this down. I had folded in the edge of this because it was really close to the selvage. So I have the end of this skirt just folded in once so I don't have to hem it. It's just a little bit of selvage, which is like a finished smooth edge folded under. So I didn't have to actually hem this edge on that side, which is nice. But here's my top. I feel like I am really spacey today. Apologies. I'm going to sew my center front of this, right sides together, of course. It doesn't really actually have to have a center front seam, but I added one anyhow. There you go. Then I have my side backs and my long center backs. And those I need to sew together as well. And in one of these, I'm going to leave a gap, which is going to allow this to like slip together and wrap around. The actual like vintage top I was looking at didn't seem to have this gap here. It just kind of wrapped over itself, but that seemed like it would be a little bit bulky and this seemed a little bit more secure. So I'm leaving about a 4-inch gap here in this one side so I can pull through the tie like so. Hopefully you see what I mean there. And then the other side I can just sew regularly like so. And once again, if you boned all those seams, like if you threw some wriggling in there, this probably would stay up on its own, although you would still have to figure out a strapless bra situation or do like some sort of a foam cover kind of a deal. But I am going to add straps to this. I'll just show you how to do that later because I never do patterning for straps. It's not worth it to me. Anyway, I'm going to sew these things over on the machine. So on my center front, sewing these side backs, and then I'll show you on this other side back. I'm going to start and stop with some back stitching so I can leave myself a little slit here. I'm going to sew the bottom inch or so shut here, like so. Again, doing a little bit of back stitching at the start and end of that, and then leave about a 4-inch gap, and then sew the rest of the seam above that with a little bit of back stitching again. So I can leave that slit open in the back of this for my ties to pull through. Then I'm just going to baste over those pleats I did on the skirt. Again, here I am switching between the top and skirt back and forth quite a lot, so apologies. But I was making this all in the same night. And then I'm going to sew all my darts for the skirt. We've seen me sew a dart before, no problem there. So I'm just, again, starting at the large end of the dart, sewing off the tip, tying those shut. Many a dart must be sewn for this skirt, no problem. Then I will press my center front seam here. This is my center front of the top. I'll grab my side fronts. You really could get away with layering the side seam of this together and eliminating that side seam if you wanted to, by the way. But I didn't bother. But here I'm just going to pin my princess seams along the front. I'm actually going to pin both at once around that curve. Of course, this curve will need to be clipped later, but I'm actually planning on fully lining this top, and so it will not be a problem. Because I wanted it to be, well, actually, because it's fully lined, it is fully reversible again, especially if you made the straps in 2 strips. It would be absolutely fully reversible. But the way I'm doing it here, it would have patterned straps and the inside is solid, so that wouldn't really work. But you could, if you made the straps reversible as well, you could make this fully reversible, no problem. But I'm just going to press my darts on my skirt pieces as well, and then set those aside while I continue to work on the top. but I can also pin the side seams of the skirt here. So I'm pinning the left front and the right front to the left and right seams, right sides together of the back. If you can imagine what a wrap skirt looks like, if you can imagine the last one I made, you know what I mean, once again. I guess I'm relying on you to know how things go together a little bit today. I apologize. This is actually rather a quick set to make. But I've cut my straps here, again 4 inches wide, 15 inches long. I could probably have cut these 16 to give myself a little more wiggle room because this is about exactly how long they need to be. But I guess no wasted fabric this way. And I had very little of this fabric left because I actually had just enough to cut a regular wrap back top with my all-in-one sleeve out of this as well. And so I have a set that either I can wear this strappy top or I can wear the regular wrap back top, depending on how scandalous I feel that day. But here I am sewing those front princess seams. Again, of course, 1/2 inch seam allowance as always. And I've got a lot of pins in the bust, over the bust of these, and I just sew over them because it's, you know, me. That's right. And then I will sew my straps together here. I could have made these just a tiny bit wider because the goal in having straps for me at any time, if I ever make anything strappy, which again, super rare and outside my comfort zone because like many a human, I do still have some insecurities, and for me that is the tops of my arms. But I like to have my straps wide enough and set perfectly over my bra straps so that I can wear a bra with things. This is always my goal. I don't understand strappy things a lot of the time because I cannot go braless. So all straps must cover bra straps in my world. But here I am sewing the side seams of that skirt as well, since I had pinned them and set it aside. We all know how I like to batch process things, including when I'm making 2 things at once. But if I were making a dress, you know, the only difference between making a top and a skirt and making a dress is that you don't sew them together at the waist seam. And these are both, again, wrap items that wrap in different places. So I cannot make this exactly into a dress. I mean, I could figure it out probably, but why not have separate items that can be worn in more versatile ways? Because now I can wear this top with any skirt and wear this skirt with any top, or this skirt over a bathing suit, which would work out very well as well. But I'm just pressing open my princess seams here. I have, of course, clipped triangles out of those down to the seam line so that it will press open smoothly, like so. And I will do the other side. And again, these, I'm not worried about this fraying because it will be fully lined in the end here. But I have these little curved cups in this now for my bust. We're basically making fabric 3D at all times. But I can sew my side seams, which you can see are very straight little 8-inch long seams, so no problem there. And I can go ahead and press and turn correct side out my straps here as well. I just did that with my fingers. You can use a tool to do this. You can use a knitting needle to do this. There are many ways to do this, but these straps are wide enough that I can just use my hands, and so that is what I'm doing here. I am pressing these with the seam allowance centered along the underside of the seam, or underside of the strap. Yeah, I keep forgetting the word strap. It's because I don't make anything with straps often, I guess. Like so. But again, it would be fun to do this with straps that were like black on one side, white on the other, and make the top fully reversible, and make it 2 tops in one. Anyway, here is my finished, like long bandeau kind of top right now. And I've got the green Kona cotton lining here. Kona cotton is a very widely used and distributed quilting cotton in solid colors. It's a little bit thick for this. We all know how I feel about quilting cotton. But having access to a full range of colors of like cotton poplin shirting, nobody has that. So whereas Kona cotton, they have every color imaginable. So I grabbed one actually at my local Joann's to match this as best I could. This was the best green they had on hand, and I wanted to make this project. This is 100% cotton as well, and I did pre-wash it just like I pre-washed the batik. So again, this whole thing can be thrown in the wash and probably hung up to dry, even though I did dry the fabric as well, so it shouldn't shrink on me. But I've just made that same little strapless top, basically, all the same steps in the lining as well, and now I'm going to bag line the whole thing. And because I've left that slit open in the side backs on the same side, or opposite side for the lining and the outside, so that it would be on the same side once turned right side out. Again, hopefully that makes any sense. I can pull this out, the bag lining I can do all the way around and pull this out through that slit. And you can see I just pinned my straps in because I will sew those in along the backs, along the top of the side back seams. Where the side back and the back meet, that is exactly where my bra strap is. If you know that, you can do this sort of thing. If you need to put the straps in last, just leave little gaps, which is what I'm doing here over the front. Like leave 2-inch-ish gaps with a little bit of wiggle room where you think you need your straps to go, and then you can set them in at the perfect angle later on once you can try on the top. Oh my gosh, once again, I hope this makes any sense. If you've ever made any strappy garments, you probably know what I'm talking about. I feel like now that I'm here, I'm realizing there's a lot more that I could have gone into better detail about, so I better make something else strappy again. And again, I found a couple of other sale batiks that I really like, so maybe I'll make another slightly tropical inspired cotton dress with straps over on the channel later this summer, because I actually like this one more than I figured I would. And maybe now that I'm, in my 30s, I just don't care if people don't think my arms are like Gisele Bündchen's arms. Who cares? Like, the world is falling apart and life is short, so like, do I need to care if my arms aren't perfect? No. That's probably silly. So maybe I'll start wearing strappier things, although that does mean I need to put sunscreen on. Luckily not often, because it's not like I leave the house very often, but if I did, I'd be wearing this outfit, Especially in the summertime, with like a nice wicker bag, or a bamboo bag maybe. This would be pretty with gold for evening, going out to get some tacos or something. But now that this is fully bag lined, I will clip anywhere that's curved a little. I didn't clip that very epically, just a little, because it's only vaguely curved around the waistline of this, but at the top where it's curved over the bust, I've put clips in. Of where the corners are, I've clipped out the corners, just so clipping everything that needs to be clipped, anything curved or cornered. But you can see I'm pulling this through that back slit I left open. So I'll turn this all right side out, and then I can give it a good pressing now that it's all bag lined, like so. If at any point of this you wanted to add understitching, you could, especially because this is pretty straight lines, both the top end, like the top edge of this and the bottom waistline of this are pretty straight edges, so you could get away with understitching it. I just knew that the cotton would stick to the cotton and I wouldn't have a problem, so I didn't bother. But now that everything is pressed together, I can go ahead and sew the openings that I left in that back side seam shut. So this is the left-hand side back seam between the side back and the back. And I'm just going to sew a little box around this. You could slip stitch this shut invisibly if you wanted to hand stitch it, no problem. I'm just going to do a little top stitching because no one's going to see this thread in this busy leafy print, so why not? So I'm just going around and sewing this together. Again, the more couture way to do this would be to slip stitch it all shut, but it's fine. And I like having the sturdiness of all that stitching if I'm pulling this wrap through there. Anyway, because I left openings above the bust for these straps, I've tried this on and set the straps in there at the perfect angle. I've just slipped those in between the front and back, and then I can hand stitch that down. But of course, while trying this on, I noticed that my bra straps did still show a tiny bit in the front, mostly because vintage style bras like the Bali Flower are a little bit more full coverage of a bra. But I grabbed my waistband for the skirt that was sitting there and started playing around with that. So that's what this is. And I pinned it here about an inch down from the center front of my neckline, and I gathered it up in the middle. This is me trying to create a little bit of the sort of like weird little shelf, overbust shelf things that you see on like Alfred Shaheen tropical dresses from the 50s and stuff. So I grabbed this strip and started playing with it and pinning it on, and what I ended up with was this little angled strip that's going to go along the front. So this is my waistband that I was playing with, and I pinned it up like to the center, up to the strap, and then to the side seam. And I'll show you, that's how I had it pinned, so I could create this little shelf here like you see on 50s dresses. And then I took this off and I traced this angle that I had pinned in because I liked it, and I made this little piece out of scrap fabric, because of course this is still my waistband for the skirt, so I'll set that aside again. But I knew it needed to be about 4 inches wide, like that was. Anyway, I traced that angle and ended up with this. So I got this pattern piece. This is going to gather down here at the center. This is going to go up to cover that little bit of bra strap that shows at the top of my straps. And then this will get connected down here to the side seam. This is just playing with a strip of fabric while I'm wearing the garment, to figure out how to do this. So very like creativity required on the spot to make this work. I could have just taken the straps off and made wider straps also, which would have been an option, but I think this is actually prettier and more fun anyhow. So I was really happy with how this fix came out, and if I make another of these tops, which I hope to, I will use this same situation. But let me just turn these red side out. For that little section, these like ribbons I'm adding onto the front, basically wide ribbon bust shelf things, I just lined those in the same batik. So I just made little self-lined bust shelves things. And I'm just going to press those nicely, and I'll pin them into place so you can see what that looks like. And again, I'm just clipping my corners to be able to press these nicely. but hopefully you agree that this is a fun, extra detail solution that looks like it's meant to be there. Especially in this, again, busy print. I could have done many things that would not be very noticeable, but I wanted to make it more of a design feature as opposed to me just making my neckline a little bit too low for the style of bra I wear, which is what actually happened, but that's okay. And I'm just going to use a small strip here. This is maybe 4 inches long by 2 inches wide. I'm just going to press in the sides of that, and this is going to be like my center, like quote-unquote tie, where this little ribbon gets tied in the front. I'm going to grab my top here. So I have this, and I'm going to pin the top here where it needs to go. I have a pin set in my strap where it needs to go from trying this on. That's how I know where to put that. And then the center just gets scrunched down, and this gets tacked along the neckline a little, and then the rest of this angled side just gets pinned right along the side seam, like so. Same over here. The angled bits gets pinned about a 1/2 inch down from the top of the underarm, and then again this gets gathered, just roughly pinched to about 1 inch down from the center of the neckline, underneath my arm here. Super not useful. This is already like loosely explained. Like the last thing I need is for it not to be on camera. Come on, kid. But I'm just seeing how far this needs to come up, about 1 inch. Put a pin in there. Put a pin in that, literally. And then I'll put this up here. And then all of this I'm just going to hand tack down with invisible stitches. So I am slip stitching all of this stuff down in place so that you can't tell that it was added on accidentally. This little buddy just covers up the ends of this here at the center front, so I'm just going to tuck it underneath where those overlap. Put a couple of pins in there for now until I can stitch this, and then this just gets wrapped over that, like so. And I'm just going to wrap this all the way up to the top, actually, and tack it to the inside of the garment, which of course would make this unreversible anymore, but that's all right. And I'm just going to, again, sew this all in place. I need to sew these straps shut into here anyhow. And I'm going to tack it along the neckline, tack all this stuff in here. Just finish this all up by hand sewing this additional trimming on, just to fix my mistake with having the neckline be a little bit low for my bra straps. And I'm just pressing my side seams of my skirt here, because I do have 2 steps left on this skirt. I need to attach the waistband, but actually before I can do that, I need to hem this skirt. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm just going to turn this up 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch again. This is a curved hem, which makes it a little bit more annoying to turn up like this, but as long as you keep it pretty narrow, it's not so bad. So I'm just going to turn it at 1/4 and 1/4, pin that into place, and I actually did end up hand stitching this hem. I think the one on the channel I machine stitched, but this one I'm again really in love with this fabric, and I was really enjoying how this was coming out, so I wanted to go ahead and finish this by hand, just so that it would have the best possible like hang, etc. So I went ahead and hem this by hand. I'm taking a tiny stitch into the fabric and then a little bit of a longer stitch into the actual fold of the hem itself, working from the inside. And these little tiny pricks will not be seen on the outside. But I'll just go around the whole thing and stitch this down by hand, which did take me, a little while. I didn't do it all over here standing at the ironing board. I sat down and did it, I promise. Which is why you're only getting a little bit of footage here, and it's very blurry and not great, so apologies. I hand hemmed it. Use whichever hand stitch you enjoy best and works best for you, once again. And here I have my waistband. Again, I just cut a long strip of fabric, as long as I could. At least 2-3 times my waist measurement. Probably 3 times the waist measurement is a good base for that, actually. And then I'm going to stitch this on. I am stitching this so that the waistband is not centered from the center back. Like each length, the straps are not the same, because for the wrap of this, I didn't want it to wrap tied in the back. I wanted this to tie on the side. So I made it so that the ties on one side are longer than the other, because one side needs to wrap around further. That depends on which side you have your tie on. So play with this on your body before you stitch it, basically. Because I don't exactly know how to explain how to do this tie, evidently. I'm again having a terrible time explaining, as usual. I know I always say that, and some of you seem to understand my way my twisted brain works, but the fact that I ended up any way, form, sort of teaching is kind of a shock, and hopefully I'll just get better at it, because we could use some improvement here. But I was at the vet all morning, making sure my kitties are okay. So, maybe I'm just a little bit burnt out from all that coordinating going on. Our little silver tabby has a little bit of a rash above his eye. We're not exactly sure what it is. The vet isn't either, but his eye looks okay. So presumably he's going to be fine. And then our little orange tabby is having some intestinal fun times. So we're going to get him on slight antibiotic for a little while, just so that his tummy will feel better. It's funny, they need an antibiotic and a probiotic. We're going to get rid of your bad bacteria, and then we need to give you some, basically. For our poor little orange Xander, who is just the cutest. Luckily, the kitties... I mean, I can't even believe it's only been a couple of weeks since we had them, because I already feel like I'm way too deeply in love with them, obviously. They're such cuties. And both the boys are very cuddly, which is nice. Sophie, less so. She's less into the cuddles, but hopefully we'll get there. As of right now, it seems more like she treats us as like employees as opposed to, people to love. But we'll get there, hopefully. She lets us pet her and pick her up. She has no problem being picked up, which is nice, or carried. But she doesn't want to sit on anyone's lap yet. She'll sit near you, but not on the lap. So let me know your best tips for dealing with attitudinal towardy cats. Because I just want to love her, but she doesn't seem to be as interested in letting me do so. And here is my finished green batik summer set, the wrap skirt and the wrap top. They just wrap differently, but they both wrap. I think it's just nice to have things that don't have buttons and zippers all the time, just because they are kind of more time consuming and fiddly to insert. And I had a lot to figure out on this top, but now that I know how to put everything together, I think I'll be able to make one quicker next time. Although this set did still take me only about a day and a couple of hours, so maybe like 10 hours total, 8 or 10 hours total between pattern drafting and sewing the whole thing. Of course, it will take less time next time because the pattern will already be constructed. So if I ever do find another $4 sale batik, I would gladly make this again in another color. I hope you enjoyed seeing how these projects came together today, and thank you so much to my patrons again for their support and letting me share these videos with everyone over here on the channel while I figure out the mess that is my life this year. Thank you as always for watching today, and I'll be back with more sewing, vintage fashion, costuming, and crafting real soon, so I'll see you then. Bye.